Hello,
Hello, welcome to Sciencing. My name is Ruby,
I'm Nathan.
and today we're gonna talk about useless woke
Useless
science.
woke science.
But yeah, we're looking at more than 2 weeks now of government being shut down, and we thought it would be really important to highlight some of the science that the government, when it is working, has funded in the past, and how it has benefited like all of humanity besides society. And it was really nice to I thought it would be really nice to do little snippets of stories,
Yeah.
and then I went online and started looking for them. And and one of my lab mates actually told me about the site. And I'm going to read a little bit about their goals. And we'll post the
I
link.
guess
Hold on.
like maybe before we get into the site, I was like one thing I wanted to mention is like why we thought it was like interesting to do this stream. Um, and so I think that a big part of this is like over the last couple of years, there's really been this push from especially the political right to really demonize science. Of course, there was a lot that happened when Trump got elected, but it actually really started a lot before that. I actually remember one thing I remember really vividly because it was a person who came to my undergrad like a few weeks before this controversy happened. Is that there were these researchers who were studying duck penises and why they are corkscrew scraped or corkscrew screw
Shaped.
shaped.
Yeah.
Um, and she went and gave a talk at my college. And honestly, like most of the people who went to this talk were like, that is interesting, but a weird thing to study. Like, why did they bring this person on? And then, like, a few weeks later in Congress, there were like Republican Congress people like talking about how like the NSF should cut funding for her research, and they're just like, look at all these wastes of funding. This woman is studying duck penises, and like, what's the use of that? And I will say that I think there actually is a use for it, which is ducks are among the rapiest of birds, and they basically only reproduce through rape, actually, and because of that, they have these extremely elaborate genitals, both the males and the females, that have basically evolved because they only reproduce through this sexual conflict. And so this researcher was studying why do they have this, how does it work, and what does that kind of tell us about it. But really, I think what no one really talked about is that there's actually a really important reason to study this, which is to be like, what causes ducks to be rapier than other kinds of birds, and like what kinds of adaptations does that cause in them, and that this has implications for understanding both like just in general how do things evolve, and also for these societal issues that happen in human societies, maybe what are some of the factors that are important in it. Yeah, so I think
That went
that's one
really
kind of,
dark. I was just like, oh,
yeah.
into like how human rapey behavior arises.
I think that is like something like to me, I think that is like one of the reasons that this is important is that like you can understand in a species that has evolved to have a lot of rapey behaviors, like what is different between that and other birds like geese that are highly related but do it a lot less. Um and yeah, I think understanding those things is important.
Yeah, and previously to this, like our stream highlights things like the ignobles fairly often. Like I think even one stream ago we were talking about the ignobles and why, some of these experiments led to really important discoveries, but also like to like really enjoy science for like the like what's it called, celebrating curiosity, and
Mhm.
like how important that is as well, on top of the fact that they have functional, do you know what I mean? Like a lot of times we need to indulge in these curiosities, like human nature curiosities, because we don't know where they will lead us, and sometimes it will lead
Exactly, yeah.
us to really useful things, and sometimes it might lead us to not very useful things, but could be used. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't. It's not always like a one-to-one, and that's like an argument against the style of science like private
That's
companies
very
will go for.
focused on like
Yeah,
how can we make a drug for this disease.
yeah, like how do we fix problem A? Here's like, we'll go for all the ways you can solve this problem. There is room for that kind of science, but there also needs to be room for the kind of science where it's more discovery and like, figure things out just for the sake of figuring things out.
Or even just like let's see what kinds of birds live on this island, which was a big part of how we figured out how evolution works, actually. But
Yeah.
like it started with just like let's find all the bird schools that we can on this island.
Yeah, like how did these animals get here? like
Yeah,
like what
yeah.
how does genetic drift happen? Anyway,
I
and
think
so
one
anyway,
other thing I wanted to talk about as intro actually is um the I think the other thing that we have to think about, because this is also a part of what comes up in this debate, is that a lot of these criticisms are kind of made up too. I think I feel like there's two issues. One is that kind of that you have really like research that is useful but not useful in an obvious way that kind of gets skewered by these people. The other part is just like they're not actually talking about the research at all. They just like make up something that makes it sound bad. I
yeah.
think the most recent case of this is that a lot of projects, there's a lot of talk about how the NIH was funding research on transgender animals, or for like hormone therapy for animals. And then like when people actually looked at the grants, like what it turned out was it was just like they were studying different hormones using the animals, which just like hormones are just cellular control signals that regulate different processes in the body. And so like they're like, oh, they're like studying hormone therapy to make rats transgender. And like actually that's like, and I think we should be mindful of that, because I think sometimes you get like I've found that sometimes I get into being like, okay, I guess I got to defend this thing that really does seem kind of bizarre. And then you look it up and you're just like, actually, that's just like not what they were doing at all.
I was also gonna say, I think in some instances, the journalist literally swapped out the word transgenic with transgender and
Uh-huh.
just misinterpreted what transgenic meant.
Right.
Or didn't know, right? This is like the danger, and why I wanted to highlight this website
Yeah.
is actually it is for these journalists and it is for Congress people. Okay, anyway, let me just like I'm gonna drop the
Sure. Do
link.
you want to like share the screen or just put the
No,
link up?
I dropped a link so you can read it and you can like scroll through
Okay.
it while we're talking. But I'm just gonna read the purpose. Like they have like a statement in here, which is like the site's goal and vision, and it was published literally like this week or like last week, like within the past couple weeks. And it was the purpose, the goal of this vision is to articulating to the public the value of government-funded research has always been critically important. Today, with big changes looming regarding how the U.S. funds science, articulating the value of science seems more important than ever. And part of doing that lies in making it easy to find examples of the many benefits that research has brought, and a searchable repository of easy to read, clearly explained examples of the many tangible benefits that come from government funded science should be invaluable. And this would be resources for anyone who's interested, for the public, for science, for journalism, for journalists, for Congress, and even as decisions about scientific fundings are debated, this is like a place where you can like control find and like type out things healthcare and whatever blanks research, you can like find a combo where here is examples where it was important. Like it just makes it easier for not scientists to find examples. Like off the top of a head, Nathan and I probably have a bunch of examples, but for a journalist who doesn't think about neuroscience or science in general all the time,
Science.
it's a lot more difficult to just be like, off the top of my head, I'm gonna talk about this Gila monster. Like it's it's really helpful to have like a searchable database. And the beauty of this is that this is crowdsourced by scientists for not scientists. So it's literally asking for us to like try and do our public speaking, but like in typed form so that people can find it. And I think
And
it's really
like
nice.
explain the projects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the vision for this website is to build a through crowdsourcing as large as possible list of examples, which could be that resource where, for example, a high schooler in any state or nation could find stories and pointers to world class research carried out in their particular state. So they can be like, from the University of Hawaii, we studied this fish that like told us about the thing. A resource where all our citizens can feel pride in the many inspiring achievements that federally funded research has brought about, and a resource where the enormous scope and number of advances that have been made can be appreciated. And it seeks to advocate for science in general, for the value of government funding for science in particular. It's nonpartisan. It follows a long tradition of bipartisan support for science in the US. And the goal is to simply make it easy to find information about the value of science. And so, if you're a science, if you're not a scientist, please stop by on this website. If you are a scientist, please stop by and contribute an example from your field. That whether large or small, all of it can be useful and really spread the word. And we thought we would use our platform to like spread the word about this.
Yeah. So should we look at some of the examples
Yes,
or?
absolutely. Let's yeah, you can just go through the website. There's like a random generator, just be like fun things, and like we could just click through them. I think there's currently like 80 of them. This website has
Oh
been
yeah,
live.
like 80.
Oh
Huh.
wow,
World War
exactly
II
80.
fears of super soldiers led to steroids.
Yeah. This one's kind of cool. I think this one's about how like people were scared that the Germans had super soldier serum.
Uh-huh.
Literally like, Captain America or whichever the Russian version of it was. And because of that, we funded a lot of research into hormone therapy, and because we thought we could like, make some kind of synthetic adrenaline that could make super soldiers. So we tried to make our American super soldier serum as well. So we
Mhm.
funded that kind of research, and as a result, we discovered many kinds of hormone therapy replacement therapies that exist now. And I think they actually talked about whose work is this? I'm trying to look through
Oh,
your
interesting.
screen, but
Yeah. Oh, they say Dr. Philip Hench.
yeah. Oh, so then they came up with steroids, injectable steroids for our joints. So like if you or any of your old friends have arthritis or your grandparents have arthritis, they will do a steroid injection into the space between your joints, between the cartilage, and that will decrease the amount of inflammation in the area for like a couple months. And they also use it for athletes who are like undergoing like surgery and they don't want to go into the surgery yet and they want to like finish the season out. Sometimes they'll give you surgery. Sometimes they'll give you steroid injections locally into these areas. And that entire existence of that kind of medicine wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for government funded research into super serum.
Hmm.
or the fear of someone
Yeah,
else
yeah.
having
I
super
feel like
serum.
I feel like this is like not like a great like headline because it's like okay, we invented this and we got steroids. But like I feel like you could phrase it differently to like express the importance of this.
That's true. We could have said that in a better
Yeah.
way. But the nice
It's
thing
like
is that there's like literally 79 other blurbs, and there will be more as more
mhm.
scientists add to it. And they're all kind of written in this style where like a high schooler could read it and kind of understand the gist. And should you want to read the real papers, or there should be links for further reading, which will refer to like the actual study and usually the primary papers as well, which I think is quite important to have sources.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is great. Like, oh yeah, this talks about how DARPA funded the kind of computers and computing technology that eventually led to Zoom and uh Microsoft Teams, I guess, Google Meets, and like the kind of communication system that we're using right now to do the stream itself wouldn't have existed if DARPA didn't initially make a computer that had a screen and a videography camera pointing at them. It was like a super clunky version, but that was like the original. I think they called it the NLS.
NLS, yeah,
NLS
online
system.
system, but I guess they didn't want to call it OLS.
Yeah, not sure why. But yeah, you can like
Hmm.
just kind of search the site. You can add things to the site. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
I thought we would
Neat.
just flow through some of these and talk to
Hmm.
and like highlight some because it'll be kind of fun. Let's see.
Yeah, that's cool. And they like how they have them organized, I guess, by category. Oh, I see. Yeah, so this is um, the search function here.
Yeah, so like let's say you are writing a paper, you're like, quickly you need to know something about, community benefit and, the biology studies. And then like you just click the first one I got, which
Oh
is
yeah, so let's see. Like, if I want to know, like, okay, we've got community benefit categories, we can do all of them. And then if we want to do like California, and then yeah, Davis hasn't done anything worthwhile. Um,
are you looking for your hometown? You're like,
yeah. I mean, but like that makes sense. It would just be like they invented cows that like make more milk or something. But like honestly, like they just like we found. Oh, I see. So it already did the search. Okay, so here's the things that were invented in California, I guess. Oh yeah, so the treatment for postpartum depression we were looking at. Oof, this one. I feel like a lot of people would here would get mad that they say this one was invented in California.
oh, just because we're at MIT.
Yeah. Actually,
I'm
let's
okay
see.
with giving this to
Oh, they have
Juana's group.
California and Massachusetts,
Okay,
but
okay, there we go.
yeah. For anyone who doesn't like isn't familiar with this, so this was invented at two places at the same time essentially, and there was this pretty bitter patent fight about because one group discovered this system that exists in bacteria, and the other one developed it as a way to um, like edit genomes. And so the question is kind of like who should get the patent? Is it this group that was doing the more basic stuff or the ones that discovered this mechanism that allowed them to do it?
Yeah, but I mean, they were literally playing with bacteria and yeast,
Hmm.
pretty much. Like these are natural, the ability to cut DNA. This is like a defense mechanism that bacteria have or yeast have, and like just
Yeah, they
directed
mentioned this
evolution
here.
there.
So like
Yeah.
scientists noted, so I guess in the bacteria, scientists noted strange repeated sequences which are clustered around these things. They also discovered these
Pam
sequences acted
sites.
like an immune system. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we learned about them. Like so like Nathan and I probably know them just from school, but it's nice that you can just like search it and it'll just pop up.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and then it has like some links to how this is used.
Very nice. I wonder if it like goes to the original paper.
That's
Oh
what I
wow,
was
that they even
looking
have a
for.
COVID paper.
Hmm. Yeah, this
Uh,
detection of sure of oh yeah, this is about like the uses of it.
got it.
Interesting,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is
Yeah,
mostly about like how
knocking
it's
out.
used. Yeah.
Yeah. How it knocks out uh genes in mosquitoes to make them infertile.
Oh, interesting. And this is just about like how people are using it, I guess. Oh,
Yeah.
huh. Davis is doing stuff. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of nice. It's kind of like a Wikipedia, but like centric on this,
Yeah.
which
I
is kind
do
of
wish they talked more about like okay, like I wish they connected this back to how it actually got funded. Like this kind of makes it seem like this just like the discovery part just happened. And I feel like that is kind of like that's the part that maybe people need the most help connecting is like okay, like oh, they were funding these people who are doing this really weird research on bacteria, and like, how did they actually find this thing? And then, like, where did it go from there?
got it. I was gonna say it's probably NIH funded because
yeah.
it's kind of biology, health.
Mm.
Perhaps NSF could be funding it, but you could look at Jennifer Duwadna and Manuel Carpenter's funding sources, right? And they're gonna
Mhm.
they'll be on any paper they publish. You'll see like funding from, and then that's in the acknowledgement section, like, or below the acknowledgement section, they'll be like, these are the grants they're on, and they'll have, it'll
Yeah.
be like
I mean, I
government,
guess,
government, and then some private foundation probably.
yeah, I guess just like I think that like it's too bad that that isn't on this page, I guess
Got
is what
it.
I was
Like
saying, because I
more
think that's
highlighted,
the
yeah.
yeah, because I think like that's the part that people kind of like don't connect as much, is like if they see a grant and they're like, we're sequencing the genomes of all the bacteria that are found in cheese, like it, I mean, I feel like it is easy to convince people that that is really useless, and kind of like being like, okay, this is just giving away money to some sort of like special interest group that like this particular politician must have liked or something. Um, and so like, I wonder if like it'd be nice to have something where they talk more about like the process for how people got these grants too.
Got it. I'm looking through the let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah. So I'm looking at the paper right now. Can I share the screen?
Sure.
Where is the share button? This is the share screen. Okay. So this is the CRISPR paper. So if you like Google 2012, this is the original CRISPR paper, came out in 2012. And then you like go all the way to the bottom into the acknowledgement section, which is here. This work was funded by HHMI and the Austrian Science Fund, grant, blah, blah, University of Vienna, Swedish grant, and the Kemp Foundation, HHMI fellow laboratories, University of Berkeley, HHMI. Should that, I guess technically that's kind of private funding.
Because
Let's
it's
see.
HHMI.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
The Austrian Science Fund. That seems.
That's a private one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a private one. I mean, but they are at the University of California, which makes it.
That's interesting. Why did they? I didn't like. That's interesting that they got money from like the Swedish Research Council.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
is
wonder.
Emmanuel from Sweden?
Yeah, I wonder if this person is Department of Molecular Biology in Umeå.
Oh, yeah.
In Umeå, Sweden.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense why they're there. But she's from UC Berkeley. Yeah, Department of Chemistry, UC Berkeley, but yeah, you can look at her funding, right? Like if you look up, so that's an American. You can go to it's NIH Reporter, just teaching the internet how to Google people, but how to find people and their grants. And so these are grants that this is a grant that they're on. They got this much money to work on, whatever project it is. Biological Impacts Core, you can read the abstract. That's one of her grants. There's another one, targeting the delivery of Cas9 to lung epithelial cells. She got $283,000 in the past fiscal year. Like, this is all public information. This is how your tax dollars are being used. Like, this is what they're like, this is the product. The product is the papers and the actual discoveries, but like, this is how it's being spent. And it's really highly accounted for. Like, I would say it's quite difficult to get these grants because other scientists have to like go through and critique it and score it, and has to get the best scores basically out of all the other scientists. And it's usually done kind of semi-blind. And like, once you get that score, then the government's like, we're gonna give money for like the top however many percent, and it's usually not that high. You need a pretty high score to get it depends on that fiscal year. If there's less money, then like less people get funded. Even if you get a really good score, you need like an amazing score to get funded. And then once you get funded, you get funded for, I don't know, 3, 5 years, however many years that grant is for, and then you got to do it all over again.
Mhm.
Like it's actually quite difficult to land these grants. They're not willy nilly. Like even if it can sound wackadoodle, like a journalist can make anything sound wackadoodle, and not, like and
Yeah.
like that's the danger in having not the scientists that did the science interpret it for you.
Mhm.
It's
I
like
mean, okay, and like I see why. I mean, I can see like why that sounds sus though, because if people are like, okay, you have this group of people who are all in the know about this and they decide who gets this money, like that does sound kind of corrupt when we just describe it too. Like
yeah.
I guess I guess the way I would think about it is like I think it kind of suffers from the fact that like there also are all these corruption scandals happening and like everyone knows these stories about kind of like the military toilets that cost like $2 million or whatever. Um and I think it's genuinely like when people hear about that, it's really hard for them to tell the difference between like that story and like the story about how like the US was going to have a like the equivalent of the LHC, but it got canceled because they were buying too expensive of houseplants. Um, which was a true story. Like basically like congressional they were building it when it was called the superconducting super collider and they were building it and some congressional people went there and they were like your offices seem too nice. This must be a waste of money and it got canceled.
Wait, is that explaining why like some of the government buildings we used to work in were so sad looking?
Like why they were like falling apart.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
I
literally
think
like
so.
like the building Nate and I worked in, we used to work for the government. The entrance of the building we worked in had these scaffolds and like these wooden planks that would cover you on the walkway into the building. And literally the entire 2 years we worked there, this scaffold thing was there, and I was like, well, the building should be fixed by now, it's been 2 years. And they're like, no, like these bricks keep falling out of the walls every time the wind blows too hard and it might hit us. And
Yeah,
yeah, they never fixed it. There's like literally just holes on the side of the wall of this building that the
where the
government.
bricks have fallen out. Yep.
Yep.
I
uh
do. Yeah, like I think I got there and I was like, why do you have to like walk through a tunnel to get into this building? And then they're just like, it's so you don't like get hit by bricks. And like to be clear, like this was like one of the like new flagship research centers for like the National Institutes of Health in Johns Hopkins. Like it was built like 5 years ago at the time that like the bricks were falling out. But yeah, I feel like this is actually and I feel like people who haven't worked for the government don't understand this, but I think there is this weird self-perpetuating thing where the government agencies are so constrained in how they can spend money and you have to get so much approvals for everything that it you end up with situations like this and then it ends up fueling the idea that these industries are kind of incompetent and can't get anything done and are corrupt and it kind of ends up being put on the agency like oh wow these people are like so lazy that they couldn't even like fix the bricks from falling out of their building like why should
I
we give them
know.
research money to study drug addiction.
And
um
meanwhile, it's because we were trying to be, or like the government was trying to be like, you need to take the lowest bidder. Like to
right.
save money for
Uh-huh.
the government, you must take the contractor that are willing to do this job for the lowest price because that's fair. And so you will get the worst contractor that can do the thing for that price, or willing to do it for that price. So they're
Yeah.
probably gonna cut some corners. and and then
And
you
also
get
for some reason like
raining
it's
bricks.
impossible to like get someone to come fix the building because of presumably some government thing. I think at one point, like, there was a conference happening, and like a bunch of people couldn't go to the conference, like not because like they didn't have money, but because there's actually a law that like limits how many NIH people can go to conferences every year. Um, and so people ended up making fake badges to like attend this conference without registering for it. And it's like it's interesting because it's like, okay, like
We don't want you to
clearly,
waste money,
clearly there
therefore,
is
yeah.
on one hand, like when people talk about like government waste, I'm like, I mean, yeah, like a point, like applying for these grants and like trying to like go to a conference as an NIH person is so wasteful. Like it just, you spend like hours just trying to do bureaucratic stuff, and like we should fix that. But like the ways that especially the right tries to fix it aren't actually helpful and end up making it worse, because they're just like, we need to make it harder for people to spend money on stuff, when really we need to make it easier for people to do important things in their job, which often actually means like making it easier for them to spend money.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting disconnect.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the difference between like doing science and like seeing it from outside. Like they don't
Mhm.
see the day to day, right? I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're just trying to share our daily experience. Um yeah, I mean, there's like you can go through this website like randomly and you can click through, you know, how NASA wanted to fix the air quality on one of their space stations, and then now that is the air purifying techniques that is available in most commercial like high quality air purification systems in most homes now, or in cars.
Mhm.
Like like there's so many things they designed for space. And then they were like, actually that's kind of useful here too. Like I think Ziploc bags and
Mhm.
urine like reusable what's it called? Like water retrieval systems.
Oh, yeah,
Um
like water reclamation.
yeah,
Yeah,
water reclamation, Narcan nasal sprays. I don't know if that one's done
for
for
space.
space. No, but it was definitely like a government funded thing, right? Like this literally saves lives every day. Like in the time that this stream has gone, we've probably saved multiple lives with the Narcan nasal spray. That's directly coming out of the National Institute of Drug Abuse, which is Naya.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Naiad. Yeah.
NIAID, yeah, the drug
Oh,
spray came right out of
NIDA.
that.
Sorry, NIDA.
NIDA.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, where's my brain? Like we they shared a building with us. Um, yeah, like these
Yeah.
things wouldn't have exist if the government wasn't, you know, trying to figure out how to solve these problems. And it was all paid for by your tax dollars.
I
It's
think,
to serve you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think this NASA thing is another thing, like when we're talking about how to communicate this, I feel like this is another thing we could do better, because like I know like even like when I was in like middle school, I heard this thing about like, oh yeah, all the money that we invest in NASA is worth it because we get all these other cool technological innovations in it. I guess it makes sense, but my question was always like, okay, but why not invest in those things? And it always feels like a very weird argument, because it's usually only applied to NASA and not like NOAA, which like studies the oceans, or like the EPA, or like any of these other agencies. And like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not that deep, and maybe it's really intended to convince people who just like think that all research is dumb, but it seems weird. Like I'm just
I was gonna
like to
say it's
me,
probably because it sounds cooler that this was
I
invented for
mean,
space.
I guess, but it also, it sounds sus. Like it sounds like it sounds like you are trying to be tricked when people are like, we need to spend $1 trillion to build this Mars spacecraft, and also like we might get better nonstick pans out of it. Like, I'm just like, why not just make the pans if that's what you want?
Yeah, it's kind of like you shoot for the moon and you get a bunch of stars.
Yeah, I guess, but like it like I mean, I feel like that's the part that feels sus though, and like the question that I had, which I assume that other people have, is like, okay, if what you really wanted was batteries, then why not just like invest that money in trying to make a bunch of better batteries?
Yep.
Um,
I would argue that we are kind of doing that already, but like
mhm,
it's that's less discovery and more just like optimizing.
that's true. Yeah, I
Like,
guess like
go ahead.
I've never heard people like make that specific argument about like Los Alamos National Laboratory, which does a lot of basic research in like materials and energy science. And yeah, it like because it's like so specific to NASA, whenever I hear that, I'm just like, this just feels a little sus and counterproductive.
We should give more credit to the other agencies that are um failing to get public
Yeah.
favor. I
Yeah.
mean, that too. I mean, I do think Noah, for example, like
Hmm.
they have the worst PR. Like the only time we ever hear about Noah is when there's like a hurricane or something horrible coming
Hmm.
into town and like they fucked up and didn't give the announcement. And I was like, well, actually, was it their fault? Or was it like your infrastructure like not giving out the alarm to everyone's cell phones? Um like
Yeah, I mean it's also like I mean it's an agency that like you don't hear about unless you like are the captain of a ship or like in the aviation industry or you're like imminently about to experience a national disaster. Like the or natural disaster. Like those are like the three like cases in which NOAA is relevant, which like are all of course extremely important, but like for most people like you don't like check in
you
with them regularly.
Yeah, like you don't
Um,
really want to hear about it. But I feel like if we
right.
didn't also acknowledge that every time you turned on your phone and looked at the weather app
Mhm.
and was like, is it gonna
That
rain
that data
today?
is
We
coming.
should
Yeah.
yeah, we should also acknowledge like that is data that we take advantage of. And literally our ancestors would have been like, we are fucking wizards because we can tell you the weather tomorrow.
And in
And
like a week. Like,
yeah, and we can tell you the weather in a
yeah.
week.
Mhm.
And like we take it for granted like that this is a thing that the government funds, that your taxpayer funds, so that you know to put on a raincoat before you leave the house today, or put on a jacket before, you know what I mean, or like don't drive through coastal flooding, or evacuate before a hurricane. Like all that shit wouldn't be possible without government funding into science,
Yeah.
and a collective like agreement that this is a good thing for society.
I do wonder, I mean, I kind of feel like with the NASA thing, like I feel like what I would find more convincing is if the thing that you're actually trying to do kind of is clearly useful. Like I feel like that was where the NASA thing always kind of lost me was I was just like, okay, what is the goal that you're actually trying to achieve with this funding, though? And I mean, like, sometimes the goal is like, oh, we want to see what kinds of galaxies are out there. But I feel like that point would make more sense if you can articulate what the goal actually is, which I feel like when it's applied to NASA is never really quite clear and it seems tied to like this implicit sort of ideology that I think not everyone shares versus like I feel like we should do more that's like this is important because it will tell you when to evacuate for hurricanes and also it will help us develop like new communication protocols for smartphones or even like okay this is important because like we want to know what kinds of planets there are and also we use the spectroscopy technology to like make sensors that tell you what your blood glucose is. Like I feel like those are like more like better ways to do it.
Well, I think the problem with that is that it's retroactive. Like, you
Yeah,
don't know that that sensor could also be used to test your blood glucose until you already invented the device.
that's
And then you're
true.
like, what else can we point this at that it could be useful? And by then, it would have been patented and then commercialized by some company and then being sold to people all over the place. And like, you kind of, it's like two steps removed from the initial science discovery that was funded directly by the government. Do you know what I mean? It's like they played dominoes, and like
Mhm.
the original money infusion from the grants like tipped at the first domino, but then now there's like four dominoes away. Now it's like benefiting everyone, and you kind of forgot who tipped the first domino to begin with.
Yeah. But that's what I mean, I think that's why we need to sell people on the actual point of the research project too. Because like, I mean, I can tell you as someone who knows like a lot of conservative people, like the idea of like, oh, we should invest a bunch of public money in this so that a company can patent a thing and sell it is like that just doesn't sound appealing.
That's fair. I think about this a lot when you hear about like GPS, for example. Like this definitely
Mhm.
would not exist. It would not exist if it wasn't for like government funded DARPA, like military global positioning system originally designed for like military things. But like
Uh-huh.
everyone whips out their phone and like turns on Google Maps. And it was like, where
Yeah.
am I right now? How do I get to point B? Super useful daily. I mean, not if you're traveling or if you don't know where you're going, you're meeting a friend at a shop. Like everyone is using it all the time, every day. I don't know if they could have told you. I don't know if we could write that in the grant to be like, please fund us because this will give us the ability to travel anywhere and like know how to get there, like from my
I
phone.
feel like I feel like I would though. I feel like I would say like, hey, we want to build a global system for determining location and velocity and time very accurately. And here's like all the cool things you could do with that.
Yeah, you think yeah, maybe. Anyway, the goal is to convince the American people that science is important and we should fund it. And I promise we're not wasting your money. We're trying real hard not to waste your money, and there's already a lot of stopgaps to keep us from um using it in a stupid way.
I feel like another thing that I wanted to mention, did you ever see the website? It's called scienceimpacts.org.
I have not. We can drop it.
Yeah. This is
Science.
another reaction to the government funding cuts. But they go at it a different way, which I think is also kind of interesting because I think it maybe appeals to a different group of people, and so it's showing
Oh,
how much these cuts will impact the economy of different areas. So you can see, so right now we're looking at basically just the recent grant cuts to NIH grants. And so basically, they calculated that it will reduce investment in these communities by about $11 billion and about 49,000 jobs nationally. I think this is really interesting because it kind of makes the point that like this is also the basis of an industry, which like I mean, I feel like here, like you kind of see this because you see all these people, like constantly, for example, in Boston, delivering like liquid nitrogen to labs, and it's like, okay, this is like, there's tons of people who are working in the supporting this research that is all kind of ultimately funded by the NIH and these other federal funders.
yeah. Like to do, like I send out genotyping every week. There's a truck that comes and pick up the tails. And then
Uh-huh.
they
Yep.
send it off to their facility and they run the assay and then they like email me the results. Like with less funding, we're probably gonna not use that. And we'll probably, do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like we
Yeah.
would run fewer one of those assays and then they would lose. It's just like a whole chain.
Hmm. Yeah. And like I think, I mean, the interesting part of this, which I think they do a really good job of making with this graph, is that um actually what is the scale here? Oh, it's the total amount of money.
Yeah,
in oh
25
yeah,
million
over
is
the
the darkest
future.
red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think one of the points that they do a pretty good job of making here is that actually a lot of the places that are the most impacted are these like pretty rural areas. And that's because oftentimes like there's a lot of rural towns where really the only thing propping up the local economy is some sort of research institution that gets federal funding. Um, and so for a lot of the people like in these red state rural areas who might have voted for Trump, I think it really makes a good point that this is having kind of a disproportionate local impact.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think a lot of the economy is like nationally are helped by like the states, fewer states. Few no, sorry. There's a lot of states in the center of this country that their taxes are not enough to fund all their public um
Mhm.
their public schools, their public everything. And a lot of that money comes from other states, right? So
Yeah.
eh,
Um,
we need a government that's working.
right. And also, I mean, okay, even if you're not, I mean, like, and I think like the people that I know who are more conservative would say like, okay, well, that's not a good thing. Like, we should be developing industries that are not just like the government dumping money into these communities. And that's, I mean, I kind of agree. I do think that the part that we should also mention, though, is that the kinds of jobs that these things create are often the ones that actually allow people to really pull themselves up. So, for example, like for people who work in our field, it's very, very common that the way that you get started working in a field is that you go and work in a lab doing some low level like kind of like tech or cleaning or some other job where you're like basically doing research support. And so like this money that the NIH is giving is really kind of allowing people to get into these STEM pipelines that these communities really need too.
Yeah. I feel like this is like the negative version of what we like. It's like
Hmm.
the other side of the coin. Like,
Yeah.
like the first half of the stream, we're like, this is where your money is going. And then the second
Hmm.
half is like the depressing half where it's like, what happens if you take the money away?
Yeah.
And
I feel like they should make another version of this that just shows like how much economic growth you've seen in these different counties that is attributable to research investment too.
yeah. And I think I forget, it was like 1 to 8, right? Like for every dollar you spend, it's like the return
Hmm.
is like $8. I was like,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good return. um, I don't know. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot at this point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um
Also, let's
we
see.
should end with your favorite like favorite highlights instead of this depressing map.
Oh
Are
yeah.
you
Um,
are you
oh
looking at
yeah.
your
So that's where I
hometown?
live.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, the reason is like the reason I was mentioning the stuff about like the rural areas is like I live in this county, which is like pretty rural. And actually, like I mean, the town I'm from, like pretty much would not exist without this like research enterprise happening there. So I feel like that's the part that like no one is really like if I mean honestly, if we don't do something like there's all these like shitty towns that became shitty because like the coal or because like the steel industry or manufacturing industries left them. And like if like we don't put federal funding back, that's basically what's going to happen with a lot of these other towns. It's going to be this like we know what happens here if we cut this. It's
Yeah.
going to be the same sort of deindustrialization. Um,
Ghost towns.
exactly. Yeah. Yep. It's like we know what happens. We should not do that. Anyway, sorry. That's the less depressing part. Um,
Wait, I want to hear about the Gila monsters because I feel like
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
one you
Yeah.
really wanted to highlight today.
Yeah, so we started out, and I saw it was actually on your site too.
It is. I think it is.
Um, yeah, so we we started out talk, or I started talking about like the weird research and the duck penises. Um, And another one of these that I found is also about these other animals called Gila monsters, which are this type of a lizard, which looks like.
Did
Actually,
anyone
I
guys
like that
read
they put this
polls?
directly. If you heard the NIH was funding research on lizards, you might think they were wasting money. But so they essentially what researchers who were studying these lizards found out is that they found out that these lizards have a long period of time where they hibernate, um, and they also found that when the lizards are hibernating, they have this kind of remarkably stable level of blood sugar. um, and basically, this is just this random fact that we learned about the lizards. But some researchers who studied diabetes and the regulation of blood sugar got interested in this because they were basically like, how do these animals keep their blood sugar levels so stable? And they started looking at them and they found they produced this chemical, which let me actually, I forgot what the name of it is, but oh yeah. Um, yeah, so
Exenatide?
exenatide is the drug that we ended up developing from the Gila monster, but I believe it's like
Are these like the GLP-1 inhibitors?
exactly, yeah. So this is the first GLP-1 inhibitor. Um,
Ah,
yeah. Um, I was trying to figure out what was, did they have the history section? Oh yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, so this is discovering the describing the history part. Um and he's curious about like how does it keep its blood sugar. Oh yeah, this is the thing in that they found in the Gila monster venom. It's called Exendin 4. Um and what they found is that, so what we knew at the time was that you could give animals this hormone called GLP-1, glucagon like protein 1, and it reduced blood glucose levels. And so it acted a lot like insulin. But GLP-1 is produced, it has a very short half-life in the body. And so basically, it's not really practical to use GLP-1 itself as a drug because you'd have to be constantly infusing it. But what he found is that this Exendin 4 essentially seemed to act like GLP-1, but it has much longer half-life. And then this eventually got developed into this, like licensed and developed into this drug called um, exenatide, which is just a synthetic version of it, essentially somewhat modified. And you can inject this, and it essentially is a very long-acting anti-diabetic medication. So in people who have especially type 2 diabetes, where you still have the ability to produce insulin, but your body doesn't respond to it very well, this helps kind of augment the action of your naturally produced insulin, and it keeps your blood sugar level in a healthy range over a long period of time. Um, so this was the first GLP-1 mimetic drug that we got approved. Um, the other part of this story is that as more people started using this in the 2000s, we started doing all these studies. We found that like the people who are getting treated with this and with these were all people who had diabetes, by the way. The people who are getting treated with this and with other drugs, um, if they seem to be working really well, it seemed to really be improving people's health. They were losing lots of weight. They were just being much metabolically healthier. And this data that we then got from testing this in people with diabetes, then informed people to start saying like, okay, can this help with weight loss in people who don't have diabetes? And starting around like 2020, we started seeing these drugs get approved for the treatment of obesity, and they actually seem to be doing extremely well there. Actually, we've since these have started getting approved, it's we've seen actually I think the first drop in rates of obesity recorded in like several decades. And it basically it all came from looking at these weird lizards and being like, huh, it's really weird that these lizards can go so long without eating. I wonder why that is. And then I think the other part is just then scientists communicating among themselves and like the people studying the lizards talking to the people who studied diabetes, and being like, we could use that maybe.
Yeah. I learned about Gila monsters when I was a kid and reading the book Holes.
Hmm.
Do you remember Holes?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was such a weird book.
It was such a weird book, but I think it was just really dominant in just
Yeah.
our particular generation. Everyone does.
That was
But yeah, that's
also
all I
where
knew
I
about
learned that
Gila
you could
monsters.
like ferment things to make alcohol.
Or just eat a shit ton of onions raw.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, I feel like. Do you think that would work? Like, I feel like if you're like dehydrated and you just eat onions, I feel like. Do you think that would actually help you, or would it just like make you throw up a bunch?
Oof. I think, I mean, I do like onions. I don't know if I can just like eat it like an apple.
Uh-huh.
there, but there are types of onions that have like a lot less of the compound, like
Yeah,
AIT.
there's like sweet onions.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
super sweet onions that you can just eat and doesn't have as much of that compound that like binds to your
I
just
mean, I
makes
guess
your
it works for
eyes.
the plot, but
Yeah, yeah, it works for the
yeah,
plot. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool that Gila Monsters became such a big hero.
yeah. Yeah, and the people studying them too. Like, I think that the crazy part to me is that this kind of got into this other field. Like that you had this collaboration between the people who are like working on diabetes and the people who are like, let's study Gila monsters.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with science. You don't know where it
Yeah.
goes. You kind of just have to
Hmm.
follow it and then it might lead to something cool.
I guess the other conclusion here is this is why we should like spend money for people to go to conferences.
Yeah, so they can talk to each other and hang
Uh-huh.
out
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
share their fun facts about their weird animal that they study.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or this cool thing they read online, or this like, this they went to the zoo and saw something cool, or they were online and listened to a podcaster talking about something. Or you were on a stream and you interacted with us and it
Mhm.
sparked a curiosity in something and you went and dug deeper and then you went and did an experiment and then it just you don't know where that additional push for the domino comes from. And
Mhm.
um
Oh, speaking of which, Prozac Kun was asking this thing like, "Oh no, I made it late to one of my favorite streams, and what's your opinions on Tylenol being the leading cause of autism?"
oh
Um, so we have a video on our YouTube where we talk about this in depth. But I think the answer is that it's not. There was the study that's actually cited as it being the cause of autism. The authors of the study explicitly say like this is clearly not the cause of autism. They say that in one analysis they did, it appeared to be statistically linked, but then when you basically control for the fact the genetics of the women who were taking the Tylenol during pregnancy versus the ones who weren't, that
Sibling
effect then
controls.
goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you did the
Um,
sibling controls, the effect goes away, therefore
and so what that means is probably there's some things that cause you to take be more likely to take Tylenol in pregnancy and also more likely to have a kid who has autism. One of the ones that we actually know about that seems pretty plausible is that there's a lot of infectious diseases where if you're infected during pregnancy, it slightly increases the chance that your kid will have autism. Interestingly, one of the kind of big parts of that seems to be fever. And so arguably taking the Tylenol is actually going to reduce the risk of autism.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you like the correlation could be to more towards what caused them to take the Tylenol in the first place
Yeah,
instead of the actual Tylenol itself.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
like if you were in pain, like you don't just randomly pop Tylenol, like unless you were like in a study, I guess you wouldn't randomly pop Tylenol unless you were already in pain of some kind. And whatever caused that pain could be the reason that that is that the correlation with autism exists, right?
Yeah. So we talk a lot about this in our other video, but essentially there's been other studies that have looked at this too, and they essentially all come to the same conclusion, which is that in some cases you see a correlation, but when you kind of look at other factors, it seems like there's always other factors that explain that correlation. It's not actually because of the Tylenol.
Yeah, we're not sure if it's fever. Like you could take Tylenol for other reasons too, like for pain of some kind, or we don't know. Like that, it's not well studied. Like we don't have enough data for it. It's really difficult to tell. Half the mothers to do this and the other half not to do this. Like it's a difficult way to study. I mean, that's the difficulty in studying autism too, like defining like the parameters. But like these are huge studies, and like most of them came out saying that that correlation is not causation, which is true actually for all of science. But genuinely, there was no like causal link. Yeah, go check out that stream. We have a whole hour on it, and we go through the paper. Very good. Thank you for joining us.
Anyway, yeah, Gila monsters are cool. Science
Yeah,
is cool.
yeah, science is
It's
cool. Let's hope the government comes back on soon and we start funding science again. Meanwhile, check out the website and look at some cool stuff that your tax dollars have paid for. Thanks for joining us. We're Philosophy. Until next time.
I'll put the
my wife
website
is
in the chat actually.
I'm a former pharmacy intoter. Please don't worry. Take your Tylenol. Yes, take your Tylenol. We and I think most medical professionals will tell you take the Tylenol.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you for joining us.